The light bulb. People said, "What's with the light bulb?" I said, "Here's the story." And I looked at it. The bulb that we're being forced to use, number one to me, most importantly, the light's no good. I always look orange.
Hello and welcome to What the F*** Just Happened Today, your essential guide to the daily shock and awe in national politics. I'm Joe Manchin. Let's get to it. It's Wednesday, April 27th, 2022. Welcome to day 463. The White House is attempting to cobble together a narrower version of Biden's Build Back Better bill that would win Joe Manchin's support ahead of November's elections. Quote, "There's real fear inside the building that Manchin's stonewalling will run out the clock on Biden's legislative agenda throughout the rest of the year, leading the administration and congressional Democrats into November without anything else to offer voters," said one White House advisor. Lawmakers in Congress view July 4th as the deadline for action, even if it leaves out most of what Biden had originally hoped to accomplish. Manchin, meanwhile, hasn't told the White House what exactly he would support in a final agreement, but privately told lawmakers recently that he wants Congress to approve a bipartisan energy deal in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and wants Biden to restart new offshore oil and gas lease sales to boost domestic fossil fuel production. Manchin also met with Chuck Schumer to discuss a party line package focused on raising taxes and reducing the budget deficit to combat inflation. Climate advocates, meanwhile, have scaled back their expectations, saying, quote, "This is the last chance," end quote, for legislation that speeds the growth of clean energy, even if it requires a short-term boost in fossil fuels, fearing that any chance for climate action will be blocked if Republicans win control of Congress in the midterm elections. Meanwhile, Biden expressed openness to forgiving some student loan debt, which could affect more than 43 million borrowers who hold more than $1.6 trillion in federal student debt, the second largest debt held by Americans behind mortgages. During a meeting with members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Biden signaled multiple times that he was prepared not only to extend the current moratorium that lasts until August 31st, but to take executive action to forgive federal student loan debt outright. Senate Republicans, meanwhile, introduced legislation called the Stop Reckless Student Loan Actions Act of 2022 to stop Biden from abusing his authority to extend the federal student loan payment pause. Moving on, Dr. Anthony Fauci said the United States is now, quote, "out of the full-blown explosive pandemic phase," end quote, but he made clear that the pandemic is not over and the U.S. could still see new waves of infections from highly transmissible variants. Quote, "We are in a different moment of the pandemic," Fauci said, adding, quote, "We don't have 900,000 new infections a day and tens and tens and tens of thousands of hospitalizations and thousands of deaths. We are at a low level right now," end quote. The Biden administration, meanwhile, renewed its push for $10 billion in COVID-19 supplemental funding, noting that without the funding, the U.S. would not be able to secure enough second booster shots for every American if they're needed this fall. Meanwhile, New York's highest court rejected the state's new congressional map as unconstitutional. New York Democrats drew a new congressional map that could have gained their party as many as 3 new seats, but the Court of Appeals found that the Democratic-led legislature lacked the authority to redraw the maps and that those they created were, quote, "drawn with an unconstitutional partisan intent," end quote. At the same time, a state court in Kansas threw out a newly drawn map of congressional districts by Republicans in that state legislature. The Republican plan divided Kansas City along both racial and partisan lines and would have threatened the only House seat held by a Democrat in that state. And finally, Biden reversed a Trump-era policy that relaxed the requirements for energy-efficient light bulbs. The new energy efficiency regulations will phase out old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs and require that light bulbs only emit 45 lumens. The new standards will save consumers $3 billion each year in utility costs. In 2019, Trump complained that energy-efficient light bulbs make him, quote, "always look orange," end quote. That's all for now. You can find the links and sources for all of these stories on the main website. And as always, visit whatthefjusthappenedtoday.com for the latest news and headlines. Until next time, I'm Joe Manchin.